Did you know that every day, millions of women walk through this world without realizing how attractive they are? And no, I'm not talking about physical beauty. Not long legs, a slim waist, or perfect makeup. I'm talking about something much more powerful. Something that makes people unable to take their eyes off you even if you don't try. Presence. A way you walk. A way you look. An energy that is hard to put a name to but is memorable. Unfortunately, most women don't see that in themselves. They look in the mirror and see only flaws. They compare themselves to standards set by social media, magazines, the media, and convince themselves that they are just average. But as a man who has seen this happen countless times, I can say one thing for sure. You are underestimating yourself. You think that to be attractive, you need to do more. But the truth is, the most powerful thing about attraction is something that can't be taught, can't be made up, can't be faked. It's your charisma, your energy, being who you are, when you're not trying to be someone else. And that's why this video exists. Not so you can learn how to be more attractive, but so you can realize that you already are. The signs that are about to be listed aren't things you need to do. They're things that people have already been doing to you. You just haven't seen them clearly yet. Stay until the end, because the 9th sign is something that very few women notice. But for us men, it's something that's almost irresistible. And when you realize it, you'll no longer walk around like someone who doubts their worth, but like someone who knows who they are. That's the beginning of unexplained attraction. Sign 1. Men become clumsy around you. This is one of the most obvious signs, but it is often misunderstood. When a man starts acting awkwardly, clumsily, not knowing where to put his hands, stuttering in his speech, or even avoiding eye contact, you may think he is not interested. But in fact, it is because you attract him to the point of losing control that these behaviors occur. This physical reaction cannot be faked. A calm, confident man, when meeting a woman who is attractive beyond the norm, may become flustered, no longer himself. He will scratch his head, adjust his collar, smile awkwardly, or stay silent because he does not want to say the wrong thing. The interesting thing is that you often do not realize this because you still think you are not special. But this reaction is a strong indicator that you have an attraction that is not easy to explain and even harder to deny. Sign 2. Strangers look at you twice. Not a normal look. The first look may be out of curiosity, but the second look, the turn, the glance, the look after you as you pass, that is the sign. The sign that something about you has imprinted itself so deeply on the other person's mind that they can't just look at it once. This has nothing to do with your hairstyle, your makeup, or the dress you wear. It comes from your demeanor, a way you walk, a way you stand, a naturalness that is not forced, not ostentatious, but enough to make others look back. And because you don't try, that look is all the more genuine. They don't look because you're attractive, but because you're you. The second look is not a compliment, but a silent confession. You don't need to hear. You just need to pay attention. And you'll see. You've always left a mark. Sign 3. You get compliments on your worst days. Have you ever stepped out on a day when you weren't feeling your best? Messy hair, casual clothes, no makeup, and still received a compliment? Has someone ever told you that you're uniquely attractive when you weren't feeling confident? If so, it's a strong sign that your charisma isn't about your prepared appearance, but rather the energy you radiate regardless of your appearance. Compliments that come when you're not trying to prove anything are often the most genuine. Because when you're not building an image, you're just present. And it's that effortless presence that makes an impression. Sometimes, you're even more attractive when you don't know you're attractive. It's raw charisma, no script, no props, just you. And when people respond to it, don't be so quick to dismiss it. Take it as a reminder. You don't have to be perfect to be memorable. Sign 4. They find excuses to talk to you. Flirting doesn't always come in the form of a compliment or an invitation. Sometimes it comes in the form of a simple question. Do you know what time this place is open? Or, how does this work? Questions that people could have looked up but they ask you. The real reason isn't in the answer. They're just looking for an excuse to be around you. This is a sign of subtle but powerful attraction, especially when it happens multiple times from the same person or from different people in unrelated situations. People won't say, "I'm attracted to you," but they'll be around you more, and they'll initiate conversation in the most indirect ways. They'll ask you little things, just to stay connected. If you pay close attention, you'll notice many of the conversations you thought were random weren't random at all. They are driven by something that the person themselves sometimes can't even name, a feeling of being drawn to you. All of this is probably happening around you every day without you even realizing it. Not because you're not sophisticated enough, but because you never thought you could be the one to cause such a reaction. But now you do. And when you start paying attention, you realize that true attraction doesn't come from showing off. It comes from being present, from being real. When you don't try to stand out, you shine in a way that can't be replicated. It's an effect you create, even when you don't mean to. And that's the deepest kind of attraction. The thing that draws others in, not because you try, but because you exist in your own unique way. Sign 5. Women criticize you without reason. Not everyone will be happy about your attractiveness. When you walk into a room and attract attention without doing anything, not everyone will respond with admiration. Some women in particular, those who are not yet self-sufficient, may react in ways you don't expect. They will find ways to criticize you, not for any obvious reason, but just to reduce the disparity they feel when standing next to you. They may criticize the way you dress, the way you act, or even act like you're overdoing it when you're not doing anything. It's not because you're bad, it's because you make them feel inadequate. And instead of confronting that feeling, they will counter with judgment. Many women don't realize that this sign is a testament to their intrinsic attractiveness. You don't have to be beautiful by any standards. You just have to be present without asking for permission, without apologies. And that, unintentionally, can make others feel threatened. Don't be too quick to feel hurt when you're criticized without knowing why. Don't think you've done something wrong. Understand that sometimes a negative reaction is the clearest sign that you're doing something right. You're so fully present that others can't ignore it. Sign 6. Strangers smile at you for no reason. This is one of the most subtle signs, but also the easiest to spot if you start paying attention. You're walking down the street, entering a coffee shop, waiting for a bus, and someone, usually a man, looks at you and smiles. They don't have a clear reason. They don't know you, but they smile because you make them feel something. Not a flirty smile, a genuine smile, as if your presence softens the atmosphere, as if you bring something pleasant that they sense immediately. Attractive women don't always stand out. They make others feel something they themselves are not conscious of. A stillness, a softness, a kind of security that needs no explanation. And that is why the smiles you receive are an unconscious reflex from the other person. They don't know where to start, don't know what to say, so they smile. It is their body's way of saying, "I am attracted," when words are not enough. The special thing here is that you don't try. And that is true power. You don't do anything to be noticed. You just exist. And that is enough to change the atmosphere around you. Pay close attention. Next time you see a smile for no apparent reason, don't think it is a coincidence. It is the result of something you emit, something you need to learn to recognize and appreciate. Sign 7. Men with girlfriends still look at you more than they do. We need to be frank here. It's not your fault if someone who has a girlfriend still looks at you with fascination. And it's not your fault if it makes you feel self-conscious. But here's the truth. When an attractive woman walks into a space, she doesn't just attract single people. She attracts people who are in relationships too. Not because they lack morals, but because attraction sometimes transcends willpower. And again, it's not about looks. It's about the energy you carry. It can't be faked. True attraction doesn't discriminate. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't need lights or background music. It happens when you're yourself, completely. And that can make people forget everything for a moment. They'll try not to look, but their eyes will say otherwise. A slower gaze, a little longer, and when you leave, they'll come back again. Not to be disrespectful, but because they can't explain what they just felt. You don't have to do anything. Just understand that if it happens, it's not about your morality. It's about the magnetic field you create that they have no control over. Sign 8. You get social media attention without showing off. You don't post sexy photos. You don't follow any standards. You just share your normal life. But even so, your posts still attract a lot of likes, private messages, strange comments like, "I have something special," that you don't know how to respond to appropriately. And sometimes you yourself are confused. "I didn't do anything," you ask yourself. But that's the point. You don't have to do anything, because you don't have to try to shine. What you radiate, from your gaze, from the way you write captions, from photos that aren't overly posed, all create a very real attraction. Not the kind of attraction that makes people admire for a second and then forget, but the kind that makes people look back, click on your profile, scroll down to find out more. They are not attracted to the image alone. They are drawn to something indefinable, something very human, very real, very personal. And that is more powerful than any Instagram filter. Notice the next time you post something indistinct, a cup of coffee, a status about a rainy day, a blurry profile shot, if the interactions still come, if strangers still respond, it's not the content, it's you. You're present through the screen, you're expressive. And when a woman can do that without having to project an image, she's engaging on a deeper level, a level that very few people reach. In short, when you look at how the environment reacts to you, the unreasonable criticism, the strange smiles, the out-of-place looks, the uninvited attention, don't dismiss it. Don't explain it away as it must be because I dress differently, or I must be talking too much. Admit that you're probably shining without even realizing it. And maybe it's time to stop hiding that light, not to make others see it, but to let you know. You don't have to try to be attractive. You've always been like that. You've just never been told. And once you know, everything changes. Not because you change your lifestyle, but because you start living like someone who knows the value you bring is real and rare. Sign 9. Men are confused by you, then disappear, then come back. This is probably one of the most confusing signs. A man initially shows his interest in you. He initiates a conversation, asks you questions, compliments you subtly, and then suddenly disappears. He stops texting, stops showing up, as if nothing ever happened. But after a while, when you've almost forgotten about him, he comes back as if he never left. With a smile, a seemingly innocent greeting, but behind it is a turmoil of emotions. Women often think that when men withdraw, it is a sign of lack of interest. But that is not always the case. There are cases where men do not leave because they do not like you anymore, but because they like you too much. They are so attracted that they do not know what to do next. You make them lose balance. Not in a negative sense, but in the sense that they feel they are facing something beyond their normal understanding of women, and that makes them withdraw to regain direction. Many of them do not have the courage to continue. They need time. They need distance. Not to forget, but to understand why you created such a strong impact. And when they come back, they hope that the feeling has subsided, but often it does not. Because you do not leave a temporary mark. You create an unforgettable feeling. And that's why their behavior is inconsistent. You need to understand that it's not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of the impact you make. Their coming and going isn't a game. It's a response to a pull so real, so strong, that it scares them. And if you've ever experienced that, you're not missing anything. On the contrary, you're possessing a power they haven't learned to handle. Sign 10. You don't know your power. The most attractive women often don't know they're attractive. They move through life simply, without fanfare, without needing validation. They compare themselves to others, thinking they need to improve this, fix that, when from the perspective of others, they are the embodiment of what makes people fascinated. They doubt themselves while being the reason someone can't take their eyes off them. When you don't know your power, you walk more softly. You don't try to shine. You don't do things to get noticed. And that's what makes you incredibly attractive. Not because you're being modest, but because you don't think you're special. And the truth is, when a woman doesn't know she shines, she often shines brighter. No defenses, no pretense, no masks, she's real. And that realness is a luxury in a world full of roles. But when you start to realize, not in a self-righteous way but with awareness, things start to change. You don't have to shout that you're hot. You don't have to prove anything. But you walk away with a certainty, a quiet power, a kind of confidence that doesn't come from compliments, but from knowing yourself. That's when you stop living up to other people's expectations and start living as someone who knows what she has and no one can take it away. Sign 11. When you leave, the air changes. There are people who walk into a room with noise, light, and flashy charisma. But when they leave, no one notices. You may not do anything too remarkable, but when you leave a place, people notice immediately. Not by words, but by feelings. The atmosphere changes. The conversation suddenly quiets down. The energy drops. No one says anything, but someone wonders, where is she? True attraction is not always evident when you are present. It is confirmed when you are absent. When you leave, what you leave behind is not an image, but a feeling. A feeling that is hard to name, but enough to make someone confused, someone text, someone think about you for no reason. Maybe you have never heard anyone say it. Maybe you still think you are just an ordinary person in a crowd. But if someone has ever turned to look at you when you left, if someone has ever been silent for a while after you left, then you should know you leave a mark. Not on the floor, but in the air, in the minds of others. Sign 12. Silence is not uncomfortable for you. In a world where people are afraid of silence, afraid of having nothing to say, it is rare for someone to be able to sit next to you in silence without feeling awkward. And if you have ever experienced that, a meeting where there is not much to say, a moment of sitting together without words but still feeling complete, then you should know that it is an expression of attraction at the deepest level. Silence only becomes heavy when there is no connection between two people. But if you can make a man feel comfortable just by being present, without trying, without constantly leading the conversation, then you create a magnetic field so powerful that words are unnecessary. You don't have to be interesting. You don't have to prove that you are smart, witty, or clever. You just have to be yourself, whole, quiet, and magnetic. The silence between two people, if it still maintains a connection, means there is something very real. And if you regularly create that space, not because you are silent, but because you make the other person feel comfortable even without saying anything, then you possess a power that is deeper than any words. It is not a superficial, temporary attraction. It is a presence, a kind of existence that makes the other person feel enough without trying. When you realize that you do not need to say too much, do not need to force to be loved, do not need to do anything to keep someone, but just be yourself, then you have entered a whole new level of attraction. And if you still think you are normal, then look back at the moments when others sat next to you without leaving, even though you did not say a word. That is when you know you do not need to show off to be influential. You have always been influential. You just never noticed. You've walked me through 12 things 12 obvious, but often overlooked that you're a lot more attractive than you think you are. And the thing about all of them is this: you don't have to do anything. You don't have to change yourself. You don't have to conform. You don't have to be someone else. You just have to realize that the reactions from others aren't random. They're honest reflections of the energy you unconsciously emit every day. You make people confused. You make them turn their heads. You make them smile for no reason. You make them sit next to you in silence and not want to leave. You are present, natural, authentic, and magnetic, not by trying to show off, but by being quiet and unique. And if you have ever felt inadequate, if you have ever doubted your worth because you don't fit some ideal image online, I hope that from today on, you will look at yourself differently. Not to be arrogant, but to be awake. Not to prove, but to be fully present. Charm doesn't start when someone tells you you're beautiful. It starts the moment you believe you're worth seeing, not because you're fulfilling something, but because you are. And when you live with that knowledge, everything changes. The way you walk into a room, the way you smile, the way you listen. Not because you're trying to do something, but because you are right where you are. No apologies, no retraction, no hiding. I don't know where you are sitting right now or what you are thinking after listening to this video. But if there is a part of you that feels seen, understood, let it stay. And if you have experienced one or more of the signs on this list, don't keep it to yourself. Share your story. Let others know that they are not alone in doubting themselves while shining without knowing it. If this content touches you, if it makes you look at yourself with a softer eye, I invite you to follow the channel so you don't miss the next sharing. We are not just talking about the surface. We are learning to live with our energy. And I believe you are carrying something very special, even if you can't name it yet. See you in the next video. Hold on to that light. You have always been enough. And now, you are starting to know it.